my beloved in Christ. They tried to break you with fire, but you became flame roof. They thought the heat would consume you. They didn't realize it would crown you. What they meant for destruction became your consecration. You didn't just survive the fire, you became the fire. And now you're walking proof of the law of divine return. Let me ask you something, chosen one. Have you ever walked into a room and felt the air shift? Not because you said a word, but because your presence stirred something in people. You weren't loud, you weren't trying to outshine anyone, but suddenly you were the problem. Whispers, side eyes, cold shoulders, fake smiles wrapped in friendly voices, and you left wondering, what did I ever do to them? Here's the answer. Most are too afraid to say it's not what you've done, it's who you are. You carry something sacred, something unshakable. Your peace disrupts their chaos. Your strength reminds them of their weakness. Your light reveals everything they've been trying to hide. See, when you're chosen, you're not just walking through life, you're walking with authority. You disturb the comfort of counterfeit souls. You shatter illusions people have built to survive. That's why they try to dim you. But here's the truth. No one talks about they can throw shade, but they can't stop the sun. The betrayal, the mocking, the attacks, they were never personal. They were spiritual. Because you weren't born to blend in. You were anointed to disrupt. No weapon formed against you shall prosper. Isaiah 54:17. That's not just a verse, it's your reality. And let me speak this with boldness. The law of return is moving. It's divine, it's active. Those who plotted your fall will trip over their own traps. Those who laughed at your pain will one day choke on the silence of your absence. Those who spread lies will be haunted by the truth that refuses to die. You don't need revenge. You have alignment. You don't need to fight back. Your existence is the response. Vengeance is mine. I will repay, says the Lord. Romans 12:19. Justice doesn't always look like thunder and fire. Sometimes it looks like you rising anyway. So if you've been feeling isolated, misunderstood, targeted, know this. You're not cursed. You're called. You're not broken. You're being rebuilt in secret. And soon the same mouths that doubted you will have no choice but to speak your name in reverence. It's a spiritual contract assigned to heaven and earth that you're not backing down. And if you've ever been attacked simply for being, for shining, for choosing truth over popularity, I see you. More importantly, God sees you. You're not alone. You never were. Stay with me until the end. We're going to close with a prayer that will shift atmospheres. But for now, breathe this in. You are not who they said you were. You are what God called you to be. In this next chapter, it belongs to you. They don't hate you. Not truly. What unsettles them isn't your voice, your actions, or even your accomplishments. It's your stillness, your presence, that quiet, immovable peace that enters a room before you speak. They don't understand how someone can be so calm in a world built on chaos, how you can be so composed while everything around you screams for attention. I see you stand tall without saying a word, and that rattles them because they can't figure you out. You don't shrink to make them comfortable. You don't flinch when they test you. You don't chase their approval. And that is precisely why they label you as a threat. But the truth is, you're not a threat. You're a mirror, a reflection of what they've buried, ignored, or try to manufacture in themselves. You don't expose them with judgment. You expose them by simply being real in a world that rewards the fake. This is the weight of being chosen. Just like Joseph, who was thrown into a pit, not because he wronged anyone, but because his dreams made others uncomfortable. Genesis 37. His presence, his favor, his vision provoked jealousy in those closest to him. Not his enemies, his brothers. That's the painful part. The attacks don't always come from strangers. They often come from those who should have celebrated you but couldn't handle your light. They preferred you small, manageable, silent. But when you didn't fold, when you kept shining, you triggered something in them they never dealt with in themselves. Your stillness is disruptive. Your silence is unnerving because it carries weight. It carries God. And in a world addicted to noise, your peace is a revolution. Your authenticity reveals what performance cannot sustain. You walk into a space and people who are laughing go silent. They glance, they whisper, they shift. Not because you did anything, but because your presence stirs conviction they weren't ready to face. That's why the resistance shows up when you're not even trying. That's why they mislabel you, mock you, spread half-truths, and try to shrink your influence. Because when the truth is too bright, some will try to shade it rather than face it. But what they never saw coming is this. Your power doesn't come from their acceptance. It comes from your alignment with God. And alignment doesn't need applause to move mountains. Like Esther, you've been positioned in silence for a divine moment. Esther 4:14. You didn't beg for a crown. You didn't strive for a platform. You just showed up with obedience. And in your quiet obedience, heaven moved. That's what they don't teach in most places. The power of presence without performance. People can sense it before they even know your name. They feel your frequency. They feel the depth in you in a world obsessed with surface. And for those who build their identity on shallow applause and curated approval, that depth is threatening because it exposes how fragile their confidence really is. And still, you never retaliated. You didn't clap back. You didn't throw stones. You chose silence over spectacle, obedience over outrage, faith over reaction. Because deep down, you knew something sacred. The law of return is not superstition, it's spiritual law. Cast your bread upon the waters, for you will find it after many days. Ecclesiastes 11:1. Everything sent out comes back. Every arrow thrown, every lie whispered, every room where your name was twisted to fit someone's agenda. It all circles and it returns. Not because you prayed for revenge, but because God is just. He will repay everyone according to what they have done. Romans 2:6. The return doesn't need your hands. It only needs your consistency, your focus, your peace. Keep sowing integrity. Keep showing up. Keep walking. Let them mistake your kindness for fragility. Let them mistake your kindness for fragility. Because while they mock, God is preparing a table in full view of those who doubted you. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Psalm 23:5. And make no mistake, the oil on your life isn't cheap. It was pressed through betrayal, misunderstanding, isolation, and spiritual warfare. You didn't just wake up strong, you were forged in fire. That's why you carry authority without needing to speak. That's why you leave an imprint without having to explain yourself. The fire didn't destroy you, it refined you. And every person who tried to throw you off course only revealed your rootedness. Like a tree planted by streams of living water, you do not wither. Psalm 13. You bloom in silence, you rise in secret. And that's what eats at them. So let them gather, let them talk, let them question what makes you different. You don't have to explain your anointing to people who were never meant to carry it. The most resistance will always come after your most silent moves. That's the paradox of spiritual power. It doesn't need to shout to be heard. And those who tried to shrink you, they only sharpened your stance. They didn't weaken your faith, they proved it. They didn't bury you, they planted you. And now the law of return is in motion. What they sent has a name. What they said has a consequence. You don't have to seek vindication. You are the evidence. You are not too much. You are not the problem. You are the answer they weren't ready for. And this is just the beginning. Your struggles were never random. They were crafted, tailored, and assigned not to break you, but to build you. What you've carried, what you've endured, what you've fought through in silence isn't just pain, it's preparation, it's spiritual calibration. For a weight of glory few will ever understand. People see your light, but they don't recognize the cost. They admire your strength, but couldn't survive your storms. They mimic your confidence, but they've never met your nights of pleading, your days of being dismissed, overlooked, betrayed by those who swore they were for you. What they envy was not handed to you, it was earned in fire. Some won your anointing, but not the altar it was born on. They want the crown, but not the crushing. They want the oil, but not the pressing. But just as Jesus was tempted in the wilderness before stepping into his public calling, Matthew 4:1-11, you too have been tried in the unseen places, not to destroy you, but to qualify you. And after you have suffered a little while, the God of all grace will himself restore, confirm, strengthen, and establish you. 1 Peter 5:10. This isn't just survival. This is sanctification. The struggle wasn't random. It was encoded with purpose. The process wasn't cruelty, it was confirmation. You carry a spiritual blueprint that can't be duplicated. That's why the enemy attacks you in cycles. That's why your peace is challenged so often. That's why you've had to learn how to pray in places where others play. How to protect your mind in seasons where others lose theirs. You are not being punished. You are being positioned. The resistance you feel is often a clue to the weight of what you carry. The warfare is evidence. So when they roll their eyes at your boundaries, when they call you too intense, too guarded, too distant, let them speak. Let them misunderstand, because they weren't there for the breaking. They didn't watch you rebuild yourself with nothing but prayer and grit. They weren't present when you cried out for strength and stood anyway. Your silence, chosen one, is not emptiness. It is depth. Your caution is not fear. It is discernment. And your distance is not pride. It is protection. You're guarding something heaven deposited in you, something generations prayed for but couldn't carry. You're walking proof that pain does not have the final word. Look at Job. Not just for what he lost, but for what he carried through his suffering. He was stripped of everything. Mock, question, isolated, but he never cursed God. And in the end, the Lord restored his fortunes and gave him twice as much as he had before. Job 4:2. Job's struggle wasn't random, neither is yours. Every hardship you faced was measured. Every battle was allowed not to punish you, but to train the part of you that couldn't afford to stay soft. Every loss carved out capacity. Every betrayal taught you vision. Every delay built endurance. You didn't just survive, you transformed. You carry resilience in your bones. Now you walk with a gravity that makes shallow people nervous. That's why the law of return is real and active and watching. Not out of vengeance, but out of order. What they sent, what they whispered, what they plotted, none of it vanished. It's circling back. Not because you fought back, but because you didn't. You kept walking, you stayed focused, and in doing so, you triggered the divine reversal. Whatever they meant for evil, God used for good. Genesis 50:20. This is why you feel different. This is why your space is sacred. This is why you're careful with your circle, with your energy, with your spirit. You know what it costs to carry what you carry, and you're not handing it over to anyone who only wants the power without the process. You can't curse what's been carved by fire. You can't touch what heaven sealed through pressure. So let them observe, let them analyze, let them wonder how you made it through, because this struggle was quiet. But the comeback that's about to speak for itself. Silence isn't weakness. It's warfare without noise. It's movement without announcement. It's the sacred stillness between what was and what's about to be. And when a chosen one goes quiet, the atmosphere knows before the people do. You see, most mistake your stillness for surrender. They assume that because you're no longer explaining, you've given up. That because you're not defending yourself, you're defeated. But they don't realize your silence isn't absence. It's alignment. You've stopped responding. Not because you don't have words, but because your spirit no longer needs to justify itself to people who made a sport out of misunderstanding you. You've exited the performance. You've stepped away from the noise because you finally understood. When God is preparing to elevate you, He often does it in silence. He hides you before He reveals you. Just like Jesus, who was silent before Pilate, not because he was powerless, but because the moment didn't deserve his voice. Matthew 27:14. That kind of quiet, that kind of quiet, that's authority. That's knowing exactly who you are and not needing validation to confirm it. Silence doesn't mean you've lost. It means the battle is no longer fought on your level. It's spiritual now. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Exodus 14:14. That verse isn't poetic. It's a divine command. Stillness is a weapon. While they gossip, you grow. While they plot, you prepare. While they watch, you rise, and they feel it long before it shows. That tension they can't explain. That shift they sense but can't trace is the ripple effect of your alignment. Because when a chosen one withdraws from noise, it sends a signal into the spirit realm. A shift is coming. You stop chasing apologies you were never going to get. You stop trying to explain your value to people who already knew it but were too small to honor it. And in that silence, you took back power. You stopped feeding the fire, and the flame began to die. You broke the cycle without needing to shout. You walked away without slamming the door. And that's what unsettles them the most. Because manipulation needs reaction. Chaos needs participation. And when you offer neither, they lose control. In returning and rest, you shall be saved. In quietness and in trust shall be your strength. Isaiah 30:15. They don't know what's coming because you've stopped giving them previews. Your silence has become a fortress they can't penetrate, a wall they can't climb. They don't know what move is next. They don't know when the shift will happen. All they know is that something is different, something is coming, and this time it won't be an argument or a post or a confrontation. It will be a divine reversal, and it will have timing only heaven could orchestrate. Don't let their noise tempt you back into old cycles. Don't trade your peace for temporary collapse. Let them misread your stillness as defeat. It only makes the return hit harder, because when the Lord return moves, it moves without warning, without noise, without audience. It doesn't knock. It doesn't ask permission. It arrives with precision, and it never misses its target. Let them dance. Let them laugh. Let them celebrate what they think is your silence of surrender. They don't know they're rejoicing at a false finish line. They don't realize the lights are about to go out on the illusion they built. Because when God finishes what He started in you, no lie, no rumor, no manipulation will be able to stand in its way. So keep your peace, guard your energy, hold your silence like a sword, because what's coming isn't a response, it's a shift, and it carries justice in every step. You're not breaking down, you're breaking through. What feels like falling apart is often heaven's way of rearranging what you've outgrown. They thought they were watching your downfall, but what they were really witnessing was your divine transformation. You weren't crumbling under the pressure. You were shedding the old layer, upgrading in silence. And because it didn't look loud or flashy, they misread it. They confuse your quiet with quitting, your stillness with stagnation, your absence with abandonment. But you weren't fading. You are forming into a version of yourself their minds were never prepared to comprehend. They looked at the cracks in your armor and celebrated too early, not realizing that what they mistook for breaking was actually becoming like the potter with the clay. God wasn't discarding you, He was reshaping you, but the pot He was shaping from the clay was marred in His hands. So the potter formed into another pot, shaping it as seemed best to him. Jeremiah 18:4, that verse is your reality. The breaking was never meant to destroy you. It was the beginning of something custom made, refined through trial, trimmed by pain, strengthened by everything that was meant to finish you. Upgrades don't announce themselves. They don't show up in noise and spectacle. They come in the quiet moments when no one's watching. They come through sleepless nights, silent prayers, moments of doubt and seasons of invisibility. While they thought you were down for good, God was rebeating you for the level they'll never have clearance to enter. Chosen ones are not like the rest. We grow in hidden spaces. We don't flex, we fortify. And while they were measuring success by applause and attention, you were gaining spiritual velocity in the secret place. That's why when you re-emerge, they won't recognize you. You will have a sharper focus, a stronger foundation, a quieter spirit with unshakable depth. Consider Hannah, the woman who was mocked for her barrenness, whispered about because of her silence. She didn't respond with anger. She went to God in tears, and in that quiet place, heaven moved. The same woman who was labeled broken gave birth to a prophet who changed nations. Samuel 1. That's what happens when transformation is born in silence. It's not for show, it's for impact. So let them misread your stillness. Let them laugh while you heal. Let them believe they've won something just because you went silent. Because when the return hits, and it always does, they won't just be surprised by your comeback. They'll be stunned by the version of you they can no longer access, influence, or manipulate. The law of return doesn't operate on ego or vengeance. It operates on order. Do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows. Galatians 6:7. What they planted in darkness is returning in broad daylight. And not because you chased them down, but because you outgrew the level where they launched their attacks. They thought they buried you, but they didn't understand the soil. They thought you were gone, but you were taking root. You absorbed every hit and let it become your fuel. The pressure didn't crush you. It compressed you into something far more powerful. And now the return is not just a moment of justice. It's a revelation, a living, breathing manifestation of who you were always meant to be. So the next time you feel yourself breaking, pause, breathe, and remember, you're not breaking down. You're breaking open. You're expanding beyond the limits they projected onto you. And the version they fought, that version no longer exists. You've become unrecognizable to the ones who thought they had you figured out. And that's the beauty of divine evolution. The most powerful kind of revenge isn't loud. It doesn't come with rage or retaliation. It doesn't shout or slam doors or broadcast its triumph. The most devastating revenge is peace. True, untouchable, soul deep peace that leaves those who try to break you scrambling for explanations they'll never find. It's the kind of peace that doesn't just quiet the noise. It silences the liars, confuses the manipulators, exposes the fakes, and disarms the attackers, not with a sword, but with stillness. You see, chosen ones don't rise through reaction. We rise through resilience. And there's a level of spiritual maturity where you stop responding to everything that's meant to pull you back. You stop answering to names that were never yours. You stop fighting battles that no longer match your frequency. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. That's what they never counted on. They expected you to lash out, to spiral, to clap back, just so they could use your pain as entertainment. But instead you healed, you grew, you moved in silence, you chose grace. And that was your checkmate. And when you chose not to fight back, when you chose to protect your energy and stay rooted in your peace, the game shifted. Suddenly, they weren't fighting you. They were fighting their own emptiness in the presence of your stillness. Because true peace is a mirror. And when they looked into it, they saw the chaos they had been trying to hide. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Matthew 5:9, that's not just a verse. That's a revelation. Peace doesn't mean avoidance, it means authority. The kind of authority that allows you to walk through fire without flinching. The kind of authority that lets you leave a room without defending yourself and still hold your head high. Real peace is not the absence of conflict. It's the presence of God in the midst of it. And when you carry that kind of presence, everything that was sent to disturb you starts to lose power. When David stood before Goliath, he didn't shout. He didn't match the giant's threats with equal noise. He moved with confidence, precision, peace. Because when you know who sent you, you don't panic about who's against you. And that's what you've stepped into. A space where you no longer need to